Okay.
So it is recording. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. First, thank you very much for doing this this testimonial.
Absolutely happy to.
It's pretty cool for me. So I'm going to ask you questions, and then you answer. You know what I mean to the best of your abilities. That there's really no no bad or wrong, no good or bad.
Sure, sure.
All right. So let me get started. So my first question is, why did you decide to ask for help in the first place? What was the problem?
So the problem is, I felt like you have ideas about your business as you start it, you start executing on it, and you sort of go further and further on the ideas that you had and how your business was going to work or supposed to work, at least ideally. And then as time goes on and those ideals aren't being met, or you sort of just go further and further down the path because you don't necessarily know anything else to do. And it's lack of knowledge, and sort of like, we have the ability to execute things, but if we don't know how to get or to where we want to go, if we don't have the roadmap, then it's going to lead to bog downs and problems. And that's what I feel like where we were at. We were having some bog downs and problems, which at the moment probably weren't a huge deal, but fast forward 5 years and at scale, then they were going to become huge problems. And this is things that we needed to work out now before we got too big.
All right, I understand. That makes sense. Thank you very much. Why did you decide to hire me as opposed to any other coach?
Well, I would say that you have an extensive background in a very similar industries that, the food, gifting, and chocolate world. So you have a ton of experience in that world. But more than that, you've also worked at high level views in these companies. And so you have, a greater, amount of knowledge that I felt was very relevant, specific to our company. Even though we do something slightly different, it's still in the same field. So I felt like you were really a pretty perfect person to understand our challenges, as well as, I didn't need to spend a lot of time on catching you up to it, by just sort of filling you in. You understood where we were at and were able to kind of act quickly.
All right, thank you. What did I provide that you value the most?
I think that you empowered the team to be able to work together and really, be honest about some of the things and the challenges and blockages, and identify them. And we did it in a safe space so that nobody felt funny about saying something that was like, maybe could have been construed in another space as a negative or as something they're like, there being a problem, when really it's not. It's just that, they're seeing something different than what we're seeing. And this was able to come to the table, and we were really able to work, together as a team to identify the issues, the problems, as well as potential solutions.
All right. What has been the result of working with me?
We have a closer team that's better connected, and we also have more accountability. That was the other thing I liked about working with you, is that you as we were setting up the things to do, you're like, all right, who's going to be accountable for this? Who's going to do this? And now that we have that, I feel like we're working together a little bit more. There's more communication, and I feel like we're able to work a little bit faster. We're just doing a project right now that required all four of us to work on it, and that was perfect. It was a really good putting into use what we learned from your workshops.
All right. So when you said we have a closer team, can you expand a little bit on that? What was it before? What is it now?
So especially, some of our team members came on board during COVID. So there's not been a lot of personal meetings. All the meetings that we've kind of had have been sometimes not with the whole team or this person and that person. And so not everyone was on the same page, all the time. And this allowed us to be a little bit better on the same page and communicate more closely and more directly. Even though we're still using, the internet and Zoom and such, we're still able to, I feel like, connect a little bit better.
All right. And same question for accountability. What was it before and what is it now?
There were, I would say that, accountability was an area that none of us have been great at, as far as we have projects, we have ideas. and, not necessarily any one person just, checking up on people or just making sure that the project's getting done. And now that there's somebody kind of in charge of that, they feel empowered to be like, hey, we talked about this, or getting people to make the commitments. That's what I appreciated about working with you. Like, you had people make commitments to doing this, and now therefore they are self-motivated to honor their commitment and get it done, more so than it being a more nebulous thing where you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we have this bigger project, but if you're not breaking it down into pieces and stuff, then, it may happen, or usually they do happen, but just not as coordinated.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. And then my last question is, if someone was thinking of working with me, what would you tell them?
I would say that, if you're going to sit down with Xavier, then to be, very candid and forthright, and, recognize that you see every business at where they're at, and, it's not a judgment. You're not like, oh, well, you're not a, multi-billion-dollar company, so I don't really, I want to work with you. It's like, no, this is where you're at, and, every business is at different levels, and so we're going to look at it. We're going to examine where you are. We're going to examine where you want to go and figure out the roadmap to get there. And so I think that anybody who's looking for help with that roadmap to get where they want to go, because frankly, you don't really know where they want to go yet until you get to know them a little bit more, but they probably do. They just may not know how to get there, but you're kind of like the map maker. You're like, okay, here's the road, here's the map, here's the way to get there. And so that's what I tell people who are thinking about working with you is be open, be honest, and recognize that you're going to come into this without any judgment and with just somebody who's going to really help you.
Cool, thank you. Map maker, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. Excellent, thank you very much. So I'll stop the recording.